By 9 a.m., it's already half gone. By 11, there's a line. By noon, the table is empty and the sign gets flipped over. Sold out. This isn't a farm, it's a backyard. 12 raised beds, a few grow lights in a converted shed, and one plant that grows faster than almost anything else you could put in soil. Last month, that backyard brought in just over $5,000. No greenhouse, no employees, no wholesale contracts with big chains, just basil, sold directly every single weekend. This is the story of how that happened, and the exact methods, step by step, that could make it happen in your backyard too. $5,000 a month, one plant. Here's the real math. Why basil? Why now? Most backyard business ideas fail for the same reason mushrooms almost didn't work for the last grower we covered. The wait is too long and the margin is too thin. Basil breaks both problems. From seed to first harvest, basil takes as little as 3 to 4 weeks. And unlike a lot of produce, you don't harvest it once and pull the plant. You can cut it every 7 to 10 days for months and it just keeps pushing out new growth. It also doesn't ask for much. A sunny patio, a few raised beds, a windowsill setup, or a simple shelf under grow lights. Basil doesn't care about acreage. It cares about warmth, light, and consistency. That's the premise of this whole operation. It's not about growing more. It's about growing the same fast, forgiving plant over and over in a tight rotation that never leaves you with an empty table on market day. One basil plant is not the whole story. 3 varieties carry most of a backyard operation. Genovese basil is the workhorse, the classic Italian variety people expect when they buy basil at a market. It's what restaurants want for pesto and what home cooks reach for by habit. High demand, easy identification, easy sell. Purple or opal basil is the eye catcher. It doesn't taste wildly different, but its deep purple color makes a market table stand out from 3 stalls away. And shoppers who wouldn't normally stop for green herbs will stop for something that looks unusual. Thai basil is the specialty pick. It has a stronger, more anise-like flavor, and it has a built-in customer base among home cooks making Southeast Asian food and among Thai and Vietnamese restaurants who often can't find it fresh locally. A smart setup grows mostly Genovese for volume, a smaller row of purple for visual pull, and a dedicated tray of Thai basil for the loyal niche buyers who'll come back specifically for it. 3 basil leaf icons in green, purple, and a small chili leaf hybrid icon for Thai basil, laid out as a simple comparison graphic. Method 1. Raised bed or in-ground basil. Let's walk through exactly how this works, step by step. Soil preparation. Basil wants loose, well-draining soil that's rich in organic matter. Working aged compost into a raised bed or in-ground plot a week or 2 before planting gives the roots what they need without any synthetic inputs. Starting from seed or transplant. Basil seeds can go directly into warm soil once nighttime temperatures stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but most backyard growers get a 2 to 3 week head start by seeding indoors under a simple grow light, then transplanting seedlings out once they have 2 or 3 sets of true leaves. Spacing and planting. Seedlings go in roughly 10 to 12 inches apart. Crowding basil invites poor airflow, which invites fungal problems later. Proper spacing now saves an entire batch later. Watering and feeding. Basil likes consistent moisture, not soggy soil. Watering at the base rather than overhead keeps the leaves dry and reduces disease risk. A natural feed like a diluted compost tea or fish emulsion every couple of weeks keeps growth steady without relying on synthetic fertilizer, which matters if naturally grown is part of your market pitch. The pinch that changes everything. Once a young plant reaches about 6 inches tall, pinching off the top set of leaves just above a leaf node forces the plant to branch out into 2 stems instead of growing 1 tall spike. Repeating this every couple of weeks turns one seedling into a bushy, high-yield plant instead of a single skinny stalk. Harvest and repeat. Harvest by cutting stems just above a leaf pair, always in the morning when the essential oils, and therefore the flavor and aroma, are at their strongest. Regular harvesting doesn't just supply the market table, it's what keeps the plant productive. A basil plant that's never cut slows down and eventually flowers, which turns the leaves bitter. Preventing bolting. Once a basil plant starts to flower, bolt. Leaf quality drops fast. Pinching off any flower buds the moment they appear keeps the plant in leaf production mode for months longer than it would last naturally. Simple line graph icon showing yield per plant over time. A rising curve for a plant that's regularly pinched and harvested versus a flat, early declining curve for one left alone. Not everyone has a yard to dig into, and basil doesn't require one. Containers. Any pot at least 8 inches deep with good drainage holes will grow a healthy basil plant. 5-gallon buckets, repurposed nursery pots, or fabric grow bags all work. Vertical systems. For growers tight on square footage, stacked shelving with grow lights or a simple rain gutter system mounted on a fence multiplies the number of plants in the same footprint. This is where a lot of backyard growers quietly scale from a dozen plants to 100 without ever needing more land. Light. Basil wants 6 or more hours of direct sun outdoors or, indoors, 12 to 16 hours under a basic LED grow light. Consistent light is often the single biggest difference between a leggy, weak plant and a full, marketable one. Same maintenance rhythm. Pinching, watering at the base, and regular harvesting apply exactly the same way in containers as they do in the ground. The method scales, the plant doesn't change. Microgreens and baby basil. There's a third track that almost no one talks about, and it fills the gap while the full-size plants are still growing. Basil microgreens, the tiny first leaves of the plant, are ready to harvest in as little as 10 to 14 days from seed. Densely seeded in a shallow tray, misted daily, and grown under simple light, a single tray can be cut once and sold as a premium garnish to home cooks and restaurants, often at a much higher price per ounce than mature leaves. It's not a replacement for the main crop. It's a fast turnaround side product that keeps cash coming in during the weeks before the first full harvest is ready, and it uses shelf space that would otherwise sit empty. Across every method, 3 environmental factors decide whether a basil crop thrives or struggles. Warmth. Basil is a heat-loving plant that stalls out below 50 degrees Fahrenheit and can be damaged by frost entirely. In cooler climates, a simple cold frame, row cover, or moving containers indoors on cold nights extends the growing season significantly. Airflow. Good air circulation, whether from natural spacing outdoors or a small fan indoors, keeps humidity from sitting on the leaves, which is what invites the most common basil disease, downy mildew. Consistency. Basil punishes inconsistency more than almost any other environmental factor. Irregular watering, temperature swings, or inconsistent light all show up fast as wilting, yellowing, or slowed growth. A simple daily routine, even 5 minutes a day, outperforms an elaborate system that only gets checked once a week. Here's where most retellings of this story get lazy. They throw out $5,000 a month and let your imagination fill in the rest. Let's actually look at it. Fresh basil typically sells at farmers markets for $3 to $5 per bunch, or by weight at $8 to $14 per pound when sold directly to home cooks. Sold to restaurants in bulk, the price per pound is usually lower, but the volume and consistency of the order make up for it. Purple and Thai basil often command a slight premium, sometimes 20 to 30% more per bunch, simply because they're harder for a shopper to find elsewhere. Basil microgreens, sold by the ounce rather than the bunch, often bring in more revenue per square foot of growing space than any other part of the operation because the turnaround is so fast. Against that revenue, costs stay low. Seeds, potting mix or compost, containers, and water are the main expenses, typically totaling well under $1 per plant across its productive life. The main cost is consistent labor, watering, pinching, and harvesting, done several times a week. So the real path to $5,000 a month isn't one basil bed. It's a rotation of beds and containers staggered so something is always ready to cut, a mix of the eye-catching and the everyday variety, and, critically, a handful of repeat customers and a restaurant account or two who order the same day every week because that relationship is worth more than any single market day crowd. Growing the basil is only half the operation. The other half is knowing where it goes, and how a small backyard grower breaks into a market that already has grocery stores in it. Farmers markets are the front door. They build visibility, let a grower test pricing face-to-face, and, importantly, let people smell and touch the product, which grocery store basil in a plastic clamshell can't compete with. Restaurant accounts are where the steady income lives. Chefs consistently prefer herbs cut the same morning over anything shipped days earlier, and a standing weekly order with even 3 or 4 local restaurants creates predictable income that doesn't depend on weather or foot traffic. Neighborhood and subscription sales fill the gap between market days. A simple sign-up list, a neighborhood app post, or a small weekly herb box subscription for a handful of regular households turns extra production into guaranteed sales with zero market day dependency. Value-added products stretch every harvest further. Basil that doesn't sell fresh can become pesto, infused oils, or dried basil seasoning blends, all shelf-stable, all sellable at a higher price per ounce than the raw leaf. Starter plants are a clever side business of their own. Extra seedlings, potted up and sold for a few dollars each at a market table, appeal to shoppers who want to grow their own but don't want to start from seed, turning surplus growing capacity directly into cash with almost no extra work. Here's what the headline doesn't tell you. That table didn't sell out in its first weekend. It took a few slow Saturdays, some basil that bolted before it sold, and some trial and error figuring out how many bunches to actually cut so nothing went to waste. The honest range for backyard herb growers is wide. Some make $100 a month as a rewarding hobby that covers its own costs. Others build it into a serious year-round side income. $5,000 a month sits toward the upper end of what's realistic for a grower running multiple beds, a couple of restaurant accounts, and a loyal customer base built up over more than one season. Not a guaranteed starting point, but a believable target with consistent effort. What makes it worth telling isn't the size of the number, it's that the method is repeatable. It doesn't need a greenhouse, a farm license in most areas, or a single acre of land. Just consistent care and a plant that rewards consistency more than almost anything else you could grow. Some of the most reliable income doesn't come from something rare or complicated. Sometimes it's just a seed, a little sun, and the patience to cut it back, so it grows even more the next time.